Good morning. Here's what you missed over the last 20 hours. You had 13 videos worth catching up on, covering everything from AI infrastructure and programming philosophy to car market chaos and personal productivity strategies. It's quite a range, from technical deep dives to life advice. Starting with some programming wisdom, Stefan Mischuk delivered what felt like a mentoring session after 30 years in software development. He was refreshingly blunt about why specific programming languages don't matter for building a career. What actually matters are fundamental principles, architecture understanding, and system-level thinking. Stefan came across as this relaxed, experienced mentor who's seen it all, and he made a compelling case that in the AI age, understanding higher-level concepts like data flows, API integrations, and design patterns is what gives you that 5-10x productivity boost with AI tools. He shared some great life advice too, recommending everyone do floor washing and security work when young for perspective, and his aggressive savings approach that let him semi-retire for 25 years. His core message was simple: don't fall in love with languages or libraries, they're just tools. Focus on the architecture and principles that persist. Moving into DevOps territory, RJ McCandless walked through CI/CD pipeline evolution from basic manual deployment to enterprise-level systems. He was confident and educational throughout, breaking down 4 progressive stages that match project complexity. His bare minimum recommendation for 99% of cases is Stage 2 basic CI/CD with building and testing, but he strongly recommends Stage 3 with pre-production environments for any system with actual users. What I found interesting was his personal experience at Amazon, where automatic rollbacks saved him from bad deployments multiple times. He explained how 95% of road damage actually comes from trucks, not passenger cars. Wait, that's the wrong video. Let me correct that. He explained how bake time in pre-production can range from 30 minutes to multiple days, and how robust monitoring can trigger automatic rollbacks to protect customers. Speaking of infrastructure, Nate from AI News and Strategy daily presented a fascinating theory about why Anthropic might buy Atlassian for $40 billion. He was genuinely excited about what he calls the substrate hypothesis, the idea that boring issue trackers like Jira are accidentally becoming critical AI infrastructure. His argument was compelling. Agents need the same things humans do: durable state, ownership tracking, handoff semantics, audit trails, and permissions. Issue trackers were built for exactly these coordination problems. He traced this back to Terry Weissman writing Bugzilla for Mozilla in 1998, originally in TCL, then moved to Perl with MySQL. The key insight is that while the issue tracking experience is dying, the underlying substrate is getting promoted to agent infrastructure. When OpenAI published their Symfony spec using linear boards as control planes, it perfectly illustrated this paradox. The AI Daily Brief host took a meta-view of how AI grew up this week, and his analysis was pretty sobering. He was thoughtful and measured as he walked through the demand crunch driving business model changes across the industry. GitHub's Copilot is moving to usage-based billing because current flat-rate models are unsustainable. Mario Rodriguez explained that a quick chat question and multi-hour autonomous coding session can't cost users the same amount. Satya Nadella confirmed Microsoft's direction. Any per-user business will become per-user plus usage. The market impact was massive too. AWS grew 28% year-over-year, Azure up 40%, and Google Cloud absolutely crushed estimates with 63% growth. Bloomberg reported Anthropic in talks to raise at over $900 billion valuation, with investors getting just 48 hours to submit allocation requests. The host ended with OpenAI's quirky goblin problem, apparently GPT, developed habits of mentioning creatures in metaphors due to nerdy personality training. On the practical AI tooling front, Matt Maher was almost breathless with excitement about desktop versions of Codex and Claude Code finally replacing their CLI counterparts. He kept acknowledging he might sound ridiculously hyped, but insisted this was a real inflection point. The key advantages he demonstrated were conversation persistence across sessions, file browsing with Command+K, and what he called transient software creation tools built not as end products, but to visualize and work with data. He showed the system creating Gantt charts, controlling browsers to download images, and even arranging windows on his external monitor. The standout feature was parallel agent workflows in Claude Code, having one conversation do deep research on AI models while another built visualization interfaces. Matt's enthusiasm was infectious as he demonstrated how these tools finally separate from their engineering origins to become more accessible. I need to note that Knight-Webb's interview about software engineering becoming plan and review wasn't actually accessible in the notes provided, so I can't give you the detailed breakdown of that conversation. Switching to career paths, Coding Jesus interviewed Iona, a junior quantitative developer who offered great insights into breaking into quant work. She was thoughtful and articulate as she explained her journey from mathematics, Olympiad competitions in Romania, to studying at Oxford. What struck me was her honest assessment that her path wasn't as clean as always wanting to be a quant. Instead, she was driven by a love of challenging mathematics problems, the kind where you're stuck for ages questioning your life choices over an angle bisector, then suddenly something clicks. She explained why she chose quant development over research. She wanted faster feedback loops where you can build something, test it, break it, and fix it with ownership of the whole process. The Romanian educational system's early specialization in math and computer science gave her a huge advantage, and she specifically mentioned wanting to make the field more accessible for people outside the US. Moving to lighter tech news, the Primetime crew had a playful discussion about Wikipedia deleting the Odin programming language page for not meeting notability standards. Prime was genuinely amused by a Twitter pun battle about doors. Someone asked where to buy thick doors, got at Founders Find as a response, but then already taken saws, countered with more like found doors and threatened Prime would be found dead if he didn't mention it. Casey was more frustrated about Wikipedia's reliance on traditional media coverage rather than community engagement metrics like GitHub activity or YouTube videos. They argued that modern metrics provide better notability indicators than waiting for Wired magazine to write about programming languages, and discussed the Gell-Mann amnesia effect, how people recognize media inaccuracy in their expertise areas but still trust reporting on unfamiliar topics. On the consumer tech front, Linus was clearly frustrated about Amazon disabling pre-2013 Kindles on May 20, 2026. What annoyed him wasn't the 14-year support timeline, but that Amazon is artificially bricking functional devices when books aren't getting any longer, and the devices should still handle the same file formats. He was much more enthusiastic when presenting alternatives like Kobo, which he called kinda looking like a no-brainer. Kobo provides first-party guides for reading their ebooks on third-party devices and allows simple drag-and-drop file transfers. The Kobo Clara BW costs just $10 more than Amazon's cheapest ad-free Kindle. For even more open options, he discussed Book's devices running Android that eliminate ecosystems entirely. You can install Kindle, Kobo, and Libby as apps. He tested Calibre for side-loading ebooks via USB and found it worked on both unregistered devices, though he's uncertain if this will continue post-sunset. Ray Stepien from Car Edge delivered some sobering news about the car market through role-play scenarios that really drove home how dramatically things have changed since 2018. He was visibly frustrated and almost personally offended by the industry's evolution. The scenarios were eye-opening. A Honda Civic that cost $22 to $3,000 in 2018 now costs $36,000. The average transaction price for new cars is almost $50,000, and over 20% of buyers pay more than $1,000 monthly. The negative equity situation is particularly brutal. Almost one-third of trade-ins now have negative equity averaging $7,200, and customers with negative equity pay an average of $916 monthly. Ray was especially indignant about dealer add-ons, showing how they can tack on nearly $4,000 in fees like nitrogen tire fills and VIN etching. His son maintained a calmer tone throughout, but Ray's genuine alarm about predatory practices was palpable. The electric Viking was combative throughout his argument against Australia's proposed electric vehicle tax, calling it a $353 lazy tax that would unfairly burden working families in outer suburbs. He was particularly irritated with the Australian Electric Vehicle Association for flip-flopping supporting an EV tax last year, but now opposing it. His core argument was compelling. While the fuel excise is supposedly 52.6 cents per liter to fund transport infrastructure, internal combustion vehicles cause billions in healthcare costs from pollution, and 95% of actual road damage comes from semi-trucks, not passenger cars. He showed genuine respect for Fortescue CEO Andrew Forrest for arguing against fuel excise rebates despite benefiting from them. The Electric Vehicle Council study showed such charges would hit working families hardest because they drive the most, which he questioned as fundamentally unfair since these families often can't afford to live closer to work. On a different note, Emily Esfahani Smith from TED provided thoughtful insights about why pursuing happiness makes us less happy. She was warm and measured throughout, drawing from both research and her experience as a therapist. Her key distinction was powerful. Happiness is just a positive emotional state that comes and goes, but meaning, defined as connecting and contributing to something beyond yourself, provides lasting resilience. She extensively cited Viktor Frankl's work with Holocaust survivors who maintained belief in purpose, showing greater survival rates. Smith's 4 pillars of meaning are belonging, purpose, transcendence, and storytelling, with belonging being most crucial given growing divisiveness. She emphasized the difference between cheap belonging like political tribes versus true belonging where you're valued intrinsically. Her practical advice included reframing New Year's resolutions around underlying values rather than discrete goals, and creating cultures of meaning through genuine conversations about hopes and challenges. Finally, Newell of Knowledge delivered what felt like a tough love intervention for viewers trapped in dopamine-seeking cycles. His tone was genuinely caring, but unflinchingly direct, like a coach who knows you won't like what he's saying, but needs to say it anyway. He opened with deep empathy for viewers feeling drained and self-critical, then shifted to harsh truth-telling. Energy won't just magically appear, you have to stop kidding yourself. His core framework contrasted the path of depletion, easy consumption that promises pleasure but delivers pain, with the path of replenishment, action that's painful now but energizing later. He was specific about immediate actions: brushing teeth, making breakfast, touching a project, sending a needed message. The video ended with a 4-4-4 breathing technique to reactivate the prefrontal cortex, with his final words being "start rowing. You got it." It was the kind of direct intervention that either motivates you immediately or makes you click away annoyed. That's your comprehensive catch-up on the last 20 hours of content. We covered everything from fundamental shifts in AI infrastructure and business models to practical career advice and personal productivity strategies. Quite the range of topics, but each offering valuable insights in their own way.